afternoon and thank you for joining us on Future TV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon warns that Hezbollah's involvement in the Syrian conflict is creating a devastating impact on security. President Michel Sleiman meets with Prime Minister Tamam Slam at Baghdad Palace to tackle the current political developments in the country. And U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry criticizes Russia for ignoring international agreements over the Ukrainian crisis. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is warning that the 3-year-old conflict in Syria poses a serious threat to the stability of Lebanon as thousands of refugees stream into the small country and weapons and fighters are transferred out. Ban Ki-moon's latest report to the United Nations Security Council says the involvement of Lebanese groups in the Syrian fighting has had a devastating impact on security, including several terrorist attacks in Lebanon by groups claiming they are acting in response to Hezbollah's fighting in Syria. Ban's report also highlighted the growing humanitarian problem as Lebanon, the smallest and most vulnerable of Syria's neighbors, hosts most of its refugees. Ban called for full respect for Lebanon's sovereignty, including from Israel, who continued overflights of Lebanese territory he described as deplorable. President Michel Sleiman has met with Prime Minister Tamam Slam at Baghdad Palace today to tackle the current political developments in the country and the agenda of the cabinet session to be held this afternoon at the Grand Serai. Judge Ahmed Hamdan was sworn in as new president of the Court of Audit before Salam and Sleiman. The president later received Minister of Tourism Michel Faraon with talks touching on current developments. Maronite Patriarch Bashar Adahi reiterates the importance of electing a new head of state in Lebanon capable of facing current challenges. Adahi voiced hope during his sermon at the St. Maroon Church at the Maronite College in Rome that peace will prevail in the Middle East. The Patriarch is currently in Rome to attend the canonization ceremony on Sunday for Pope John Paul II and his Italian predecessor, John the 23rd. He will later head to France, where he will meet with the Lebanese community at the Roman Catholic pilgrimage site of Lourdes. Saudi ambassador to Lebanon, Ali Awad Asiri, says his country doesn't intervene in local Lebanese affairs and denies any ongoing contacts between Riyadh and future movement chief Saad Hariri regarding the presidential poll. The ambassador repudiated reports saying that Saudi Arabia is supporting a certain candidate to the presidential post. However, a Nahar newspaper reported that Free Patriotic Movement leader Michel Aoun is seeking Hariri's support before announcing his candidacy. Aoun reiterated he will not announce his candidacy for the presidency if there was no political consensus on him. Renowned Lebanese actress Leila Hakim has passed away after suffering from illness. Hakim, who died at the age of 83, will be buried tomorrow in the Sacré-Cœur Church in Badaro at 4 p.m. The deceased took part in many Lebanese TV drama works, series and movies, including a role in a film directed by Nadine Labaki, Where Do We Go Now, in 2011. Condolences will be accepted on Sunday and Monday in the church hall starting 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. And coming up next, U.S. President Barack Obama pledges a firm response to North Korea's nuclear threat. That and more after the break. Welcome back. The Israeli government has decided to halt peace talks with the Palestinians in response to a new unity agreement between rival Palestinian factions. The decision appears to end a 9-month peace initiative by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. The negotiating period is scheduled to end next Tuesday. Though the sides had been trying to agree to an extension, Israel's Security Cabinet unanimously decided to cut off contact after a 5-hour meeting on Thursday. Reuters news agency reported that Israel was also considering imposing economic sanctions against the Palestinians, who say they are considering all options in response to Israel's decisions to halt the talks. Israel is furious over Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's decision to form a unity government with the Hamas movement after a 7-year rift, as it considers Hamas a terrorist group. The European Union's Foreign Affairs Chief Catherine Ashton, meanwhile, welcomed the accord between the Palestinians, but still views the peace talks with Israel as a priority. Kiev is accusing Moscow of seeking to set off a third world war by stoking border tensions after Russian military drill sparked stark warnings from the United States. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has attacked Russia for its deception and distraction over the Ukrainian crisis, warning that the window for Moscow to change course was closing. In an impromptu briefing held on Thursday, he told reporters that while Ukraine was working in good faith to restore peace and reduce tension, Russia was putting its faith in destruction, deception, and destabilization. The situation on the ground was calm but tense today, a day after the Ukrainian army staged a brief but dramatic incursion into Slovyansk, an eastern town held by pro-Russian rebels. Kerry also mocked Russian President Vladimir Putin's claims that the internet was a CIA project.
The world will remain united for Ukraine. So I will say it again. The window to change course is closing. President Putin and Russia face a choice. If Russia chooses the path of de-escalation, the international community, all of us, will welcome it. If Russia does not, the world will make sure that the costs for Russia will only grow. And as President Obama reiterated earlier today, we are ready to act. Russia Today network has deployed to promote President Putin's fantasy about what is playing out on the ground. Meanwhile, Russian leaders are making increasingly outrageous claims to justify their action, that the CIA invented the internet in order to control the world, or that the forces occupying buildings, armed to the teeth, wearing brand new matching uniforms and moving in disciplined military formation, are merely local activists seeking to exercise their legitimate rights. That is absurd, and there is no other word to describe it. Russia has instead chosen an illegitimate course of armed violence to try and achieve with the barrel of a gun and the force of a mob what couldn't be achieved any other way. They've tried to create enough chaos in the East to delay or delegitimize the elections, or to force Ukraine to accept a federalism that gives Russia control over its domestic and foreign policies, or even force Ukraine to overreact and create an excuse for military intervention. This is a full-throated effort to actively sabotage the democratic process through gross external intimidation that has brought inside Ukraine, and it is worse even. Following today's threatening movement of Russian troops right up to Ukraine's border, let me be clear. If Russia continues in this direction, it will not just be a grave mistake, it will be an expensive mistake.
U.S. President Barack Obama has landed at a U.S. Air Force base outside South Korea's capital of Seoul amid growing signs that its northern neighbor is preparing for a nuclear test. Obama is in Asia for a week-long four-nation tour to convince Asian partners that Washington is serious about its promised strategic pivot towards the region. Obama offered personal condolences to his counterpart Park Geun-hye over the country's recent ferry tragedy, but North Korea was expected to dominate the agenda. In fact, the president, speaking at a press conference in Seoul shortly after his arrival, said North Korea posed a threat to the United States.
The United States and I don't have the luxury of choosing just one problem at a time. The North Korea situation is of direct concern to us, not only because it threatens our key allies in the region, the Republic of Korea and Japan, but it also poses a direct threat to us. Some of the missile technology that's being developed, the nuclear weapons that are being developed in North Korea, when matched up with a thoroughly irresponsible foreign policy and a provocative approach by the North Korean regime, poses a threat to the United States. And so we can't waver in our attention. We have to make sure that in strong concert with our allies, that we are continuing to press on North Korea to change its approach. Now, in terms of what the United States believes is going to be most effective, we've been very consistent over the last 5 years We don't reward bad behavior. We don't go through a constant cycle in which provocative actions by North Korea result in dialogue that leads nowhere and concessions to the North Koreans. We have also been consistent in saying that if North Korea is serious about talks, here are the specific steps that we can begin to take. Denuclearization has to be on the table. There has to be a discussion about how we are going to remove a key threat not only to the region but also to the world, because North Korea is also one of the principal proliferators of dangerous weapons around the world.
And now for news around the world in brief, petrol prices in Iran have leapt up by 75% after state subsidies were cut in a risky move that President Hassan Rouhani hopes will improve an economy battered by Western sanctions. The price hikes, which began at midnight on Thursday, will test Rouhani's support among a population fed up with the high inflation that he has pledged to reduce, and he pursues talks with world powers aimed at ending sanctions imposed over the country's nuclear program. A drunken passenger who caused a hijack scare on a Virgin Australia flight by trying to break into the cockpits has been arrested after the plane landed on Indonesia's resort island of Bali. Officials say the island's airport was closed for nearly 2 hours because of the incident, forcing several flights to be diverted. The Australian passenger acted aggressively and began pounding on the cockpit door before being handcuffed by the crew. Malaysia will release a preliminary report next week into the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 as the government continues to face criticism over its handling of the investigation. Malaysian officials say the report had already been sent to the International Civil Aviation Organization, which requires countries to submit a factual rundown of what is known so far in any air crash within 30 days. Last-minute preparations were underway at the Vatican this morning as the world gets set to witness the first-ever canonization ceremony of two popes, Pope John Paul II and Pope John XXIII. Scaffolding around St. Peter's Square is growing higher by the minute, providing work areas for thousands of television journalists about to descend on the Vatican. Apart from the world's media, over 1 million pilgrims are expected to be present at the ceremony that will take place on Sunday morning. Workmen outside St. Peter's Basilica are rushing to put into place tens of thousands of chairs for the dignitaries and church officials who will come to witness the historic event. Officials say 19 heads of state, 24 heads of government, and 23 ministers will also attend, representing their various countries. On Saturday night, churches close to the Vatican will open their doors, allowing pilgrims to spend a night in prayer ahead of the canonization of two papal giants. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon warns that Hezbollah's involvement in the Syrian conflict is creating a devastating impact on security. President Michel Sleiman meets with Prime Minister Tamam Slam at Baghdad Palace to tackle the current political developments in the country. And U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry criticizes Russia for ignoring international agreements over the Ukrainian crisis. Those are today's headlines from us here at Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, wishing you all a very nice weekend.